Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer. In this video, we're focusing on the books I read in September 2022 as my month in review. How did I go this month? What genres did I read? How many books? What were my most favourite? What were my least favourite? And what books do I want to mention that didn't quite make my most favourite 3? For September, I read 19 books in total. What were the genres? Let's find out. Horror, 6 books. General fiction, 1 book. Cozy mysteries or cozies, 2 books. Sci-fi, 2 books. Thrillers, 3 books. Mysteries, 3 books. Fantasy, 2 books. So you can see quite a few different genres again, but horror reached the top this month, and it's the first time in the last few months that horror has been at the top. And I'm trying to get through quite a few horror books at the moment. So horror, sci-fi and fantasy. I'm trying to focus on those genres a little bit more than other genres at the moment. That's not to say that mystery and thriller and other things are not going to creep into the mix, because they will. Because I still love a good thriller and a good mystery. Let's talk about the top 3 books for September. The first book is The Final Girl Support Group, written by Grady Hendrix. It's a horror, but it's a horror that kind of pokes fun at horrors in a way, at those horrors with mass killings, like Halloween, Friday the 13th, Scream, that sort of thing. It doesn't do it as cleverly as the Scream movies did. I thought the Scream movies were a bit more clever in the way they did that, and this book just didn't do it to that degree, to the same caliber as the Scream movies, but it's still a very good book. One of the main things about this book that I liked is the main characters, so the final girls. They all felt so different, and their experiences all shaped them differently in this story as well, to who they are in the present day storyline. And I like that. I like the fact they're all different. They all just seem so real as well in the story. I think Grady Hendrix seems to have a great grasp on characterization, and he seems so clever in the way he crafts his plot as well. It seems so well plotted, this story, and so well thought out. That's what I got from it anyway. I did like the thriller horror elements. It was very suspenseful, and even though there were some over-the-top moments, they weren't too over-the-top. They still felt in line enough with the overall story. And I did really like the ending. I thought the ending was very clever, and I'm hoping there's a sequel to this book, because it just seems like there might be. The second book in my top 3 is L is for Lawless, written by Sue Grafton. I really enjoyed this book, and the characters in this book really make it what it is, because we don't have a lot of the main characters in this book apart from Kinsey Malone, the main character. We don't have the other support characters very much in this book, but the suspects in this book, the other characters that are there just for the one book, are really great, really well crafted, really well thought out, and Sue Grafton is a great author for characterization and also plot and mystery. There was one book in this series, the previous book to this book, that I didn't enjoy that much, but this book is just really fun and enjoyable. It's a mixture of things, and one of the things I liked in this book is there's an old iron key, and this old iron key is central to the mystery, and I love that. I love stories that have those type of old objects or maps or codes or secret letters, something that they have to puzzle out and solve to get to the heart of the mystery and solve that mystery. I like that in stories, and this just really amped up the whole rating for me in this story, was that whole iron key. The third book that rounds out my top 3 for September is His Majesty's Dragon, written by Naomi, Novik. It's a great blend, and an unusual blend, I think. So it's historic fiction, historic military and naval fiction, but also fantasy with dragons. I didn't know how they would mix. I was just thinking, what would it be like? Is it going to be a terrible read? Is it going to be just so clashing and jarring? But the author just does it in a really remarkable way. It feels so lifelike and real. It just feels like you're reading real history with dragons. That's what it comes across like. And the dragon characters, they're amazing, and they have to be because they're such a central focus, and they shine through this story. And the dragon characters are all so different. They've all got different personalities, and I love that in this book. I love the fact that the dragons all feel so different, but they also feel so real. And I think to get that well balanced and those dragon characters feel so real is really remarkable, and the author should be applauded for that. And I'm going to read this whole series. I think there's about 8 books in the series, maybe more, but I do plan to read all of them. Now to my least favourite books for September. The first is The Leaping, written by Tom Fletcher. This is a horror. It's just a bad book. It started out okay. The first few chapters were really suspenseful and gripping, and I liked the setting of them. And that's where the plot was just complex enough, but still quite simple, so it wasn't overdone. And the horror element and suspense was shining through and building up nicely. Then it just loses its way, and the plot just gets too convoluted and too ridiculous, in my opinion. And the way certain things are kind of brought together in the story as the story goes on, I just didn't like. Also, there are a lot of chapters from 2 main characters, and the character's point of view, the 2 different characters, felt the same. And I didn't like that either. I thought there should have been some difference in how they view each other, all their friends, and the world that they're in. I didn't like the fact they felt so similar in this story. Also, there's a problem with continuity in this story. One character quits her job. She inherits money, quits her job. A day or so later in the story, they say she's going to work. She has her work clothes. So I had a problem with that as well. That should have been picked up in editing. It wasn't such a problem that I dropped my rating, but it was still a problem. And I don't like when that happens in stories. You know, things slip through editing sometimes, but you should pay attention to that. You shouldn't have a character quitting their job and then going to work. It doesn't make sense. The second is The Night Shift, written by Alex Finlay. This is on Goodreads Top Mystery Thrillers for the first half of 2022. And I don't know why. It's another book, I think, where the PR machine deserves all the credit, because the book itself isn't well executed at all. It's not a good read at all. If it focused on 1999, so 20 years in the past, to the present day storyline in this story, I think it would have been much better. And some of the characters, they could have been pulled out because the characters, some of them don't make sense why they're there. And I understand from different reviews I've read on this book that one of the characters was in a previous book. But I just don't understand why she's in this book. So she's an FBI agent, and I don't understand why she's brought into the field for a few killings in a store. There's no reason for the FBI to be involved in that crime, in my opinion. And also, in the story, she's heavily pregnant, 8 months pregnant, I think, or over 8 months pregnant with twins. So why is she going into the field like that? It didn't make sense to me either. So I didn't really like this story. I didn't like the twists. The twists felt too forced, and there was too many coincidences in this book as well. And the red herrings, they weren't really red herrings. They were just random happenings dressed up as red herrings. They didn't have any thought to them. A good red herring, in my opinion, is something that is thoughtful to the whole story, that relates to the plot and the story. And the red herrings in this book, they weren't doing that. They didn't have any relationship to the overall story and plot. The third book that I liked the least in September is Grimmish, written by Michael Winkler. I didn't like this book at all, and I don't want to talk about it too much in this video because I just really didn't like the book. It's probably one of the worst books I've read ever, in my opinion. And if you enjoy it, if you can get past the first introduction of the talking goat and get through all the parts with the talking goat and still enjoy this book, well, good for you. But I just didn't like this story at all. There are 2 books that I want to mention that didn't make the top 3 list, but are still great reads. The first is Dead of Night, written by Jonathan Mabry. It's a zombie horror novel, but this makes me want to read more zombie horror. And I haven't read a lot of zombie horror in the past. Not really. I think I've read one series of maybe 4 books a little while ago, but not much else really, not zombie horror anyway. But this is a really interesting and really gripping book. It starts out so gripping and a really great hook, The first chapter is from the point of view of somebody turning into a zombie, and throughout the story we get this character, this zombie, having chapters, so from their point of view throughout the story. And that humanised zombies a bit in this story, and I haven't seen that before in zombie horror, and I really enjoyed that. Also, the other characters are really wonderful characters. They all make sense. Their motives make sense. There's one main character that has some over-the-top moments, but not too many of them. But all the other characters are really well crafted and well created. And the plot itself is also well crafted, and it seems so well thought out, so well plotted. And the ending, a great ending. It's a great cliffhanger ending and just makes you want to read the second in the series, and I will read that as well. The second book I want to mention is The Trap, written by Melanie Raabe. This is a great psychological thriller. The two main characters in this story are really gripping and really interesting. The main character isn't a reliable character. We can't rely on her memories, her feelings, her perceptions, because she does unravel a little bit as the story goes on. Is what she's remembering and what she's thinking real? We're not sure sometimes. It's not the first time we've seen an unreliable character in a thriller. I've seen it quite often this year, to be honest, and it seems to be becoming more common in my opinion. I read a few thrillers this year where the main character is unreliable. It doesn't always work, but in this book it does work, and I did enjoy the main character very much. I enjoyed the whole story. The only thing about this I didn't enjoy is that we have sections. So the main character is an author, and we have sections of the book she's just written. It just distracts from the story sometimes, and if we take those bits out, if you can just ignore those bits and read the main story, I think you'll find it very thrilling, very suspenseful, and very gripping. There you have my month in review for September 2022. A good mix of genres, I think. I just love to read different genres through the month. I don't really like to focus on one genre at all. I'm not the type of reader who just focuses on one or two genres. I like to read widely, because I think there's so many good books out there in all different genres and so many good authors. And I love the fact that you can find books that cross genres as well, that we have different genres blending to make a really great book. On my channel, I review books from all different genres. Check it out and subscribe. I'm sure you'll find something you like.